Good morning and welcome to One-on-One. I'm Tyler Wing. He came to Arizona almost 40 years ago to live a secluded life at the base of the Santa Catalinas. And over those years, 62-year-old Flint Carter claims the land is a history gold mine.
These were all plows. This whole area was farmed.
An old miner's saying defines the definition of a gold mine as a liar standing next to a hole in the ground.
Now everybody looks at me like I'm that liar standing next to a hole in the ground.
The hole in question is smack dab in the middle of Flint Carter's living room.
We think that might be the bottom of the ceremonial Mayan pit house. I quit digging at the 6-foot level when I hit bones because I thought it may have been the padre.
Carter says a state historic preservation officer assessed the foundation.
He said this was Costa Mesa and that was Chienta, and that the foundation should be roughly 1,400 years old.
He says this must be where a lost Spanish mission was later built.
We got a map that shows it in 1769 as Mission Santa Catalina.
Legendary movie stars and historical figures are said to have passed through.
Buffalo Bill was here many times. George Stone Wilson and him were friends.
A filmmaker recently cast Carter in a Buffalo Bill documentary.
History says that Buffalo Bill Cody lost a fortune, and I'm the only one in this to say no, he didn't. He made a fortune.
Carter's dream is to somehow preserve this area and keep its history alive.
Them 8 file cabinets is for almost 40 years of work.
The surrounding land is private property, and neighbors tell News 4 Carter's tales of gold in them thar hills brings trespassers.
It's hard to find people that know what this stuff is.
But Carter says he'll continue this quest, one small artifact at a time.
It does pay off because I always find stuff. See, there's part of a bone.
With balanced news at the base of the Santa Catalinas, Tyler Wing, News 4. And joining us in the studio is the Arizona legend Flint Carter. Flint, welcome to the show, and we'll get into all of the history of that story in a minute, but how did you stumble upon this land?
I was headed to Mardi Gras when a friend of mine turned a truck over on me. And he said he had a movie star friend in Tucson, and they'd put us up, and it was nice and warm, and I met this woman, and she found this place for me, 1 little acre out in the middle of no place, and turned out to be in the middle of the first guest ranch in the state. And now it looks like the Spanish mission, and we're trying hard to preserve it and study it and find out more about it.
Well, very nice, and we know some things. First of all, when did the first people inhabit this area?
Buddy, when the U of A got the biosphere, they did a study up there, and they said some of the carvings were 4,000 to 6,000 years old.
Wow.
There's irrigation canals out there that was prehistoric that go for almost between 5 and 6 miles of irrigation canals where they used the stream. The stream used to run, when I got here, it ran 9 months out of the year, and I don't know if it's going to run this year. Last year, the monsoons didn't come, and there's no snowfall, so things have changed an awful lot.
Yeah, and who were those people? Who was here back then?
Anastasi, Hohokam, Papagos, Pimas, and Apaches. The Apaches had attacked quite a few people up there. There was a couple massacres. One of them was Pennington, one of the streets is named after, I think, and Fort Grant, which was Camp Grant, then was up at Dudleyville now, where the Aravaipa and the San Pedro, and that was a major, offensive against the Apaches in the 1800s.
Wow. But even before that, I mean, you live on this, I guess it's a foundation of sorts that was, what's the history of the actual foundation of this building that now stands where you live?
Well, that's what we hope, to find somebody that's got them 3 letters in front of their names that can prove it. But as far as I know, it goes back maybe 1,400 years. It was a church, and the people at Santa Vera's restoring it, John Vidal, came out and took a look, and there wasn't many records kept. And around the 1700s, when they took the Jesuits out and brought the Franciscans in, we think that that's when the mission got lost, because in Santa Vera they were out there to where there was, a little buffer zone around, and they were safer than up near the mountains where the Indians, because the Indians lived in the mountains. And so, to be honest, there's still a lot of holes in this thing, and if we can get some more qualified people to support us and come in, and it's hard to find these people because a lot of them, everybody that's got a PhD is going, well, I got a lot on my plate, and most of them, they just aren't sitting there waiting to help. Because they're busy. But I think the French is, the oldest stuff that I found, believe it or not, is French. And everybody says Spanish, but The French and the Spanish, I don't know European history. I guess they were one country at one time, and as this has evolved and changed, it's a really long story because it goes back, like I said, maybe 4,000 to 6,000 years.
Wow. And what do we think that this was at one point in time? A mission of sorts? Is that this?
Yes, sir. It's the same building. The oldest records we have is the Samaniego house, other than the map from 1769. The Samaniego house downtown, which is now Escalisi's Italian restaurant, the building at Santa Vera Mission, and there is another, a lost city up in the mountains called the 9 Mile City. There's 4 of them buildings that I know of that are the same structure, 15 by 45.
And these people just up and disappeared at one point in time, or what do we know about that?
Well,
they were here and now they're not.
The Samaniego family, now he started the Hispanic rights movement, you know, and the family was one of the largest ranchers in Sonora. And because of the cattle on the area and the river there, and that's where the George Stone Wilson, who was the first Anglo that got the property in 1911, they ranched the cattle out of there. And other than that, there's a big gap from 1769 up to around 1891 when Samaniego first had it. And we're not really sure, to be honest.
Wow, and then the actual structure right now, we might have some video of it I cut, but what was it at one time? I heard it might have been like a cowboy house. There we're looking at it now. What was that at one time? When was that built? I mean, it was built on the foundation, but what is the structure?
As far as I know, Pard, the bottom foundation goes back to what the State Historic Preservation Officer said in Costa Mesa and Chianta with the Mayan pit house beneath it. And then the walls, I believe, were built by the French, probably in the early 1700s. There's still a big gap. There's records, and the only thing is, in these records, nobody can read the dialects that they have now because they're not the same as what we have now. All of this stuff is not categorized or Dewey Decimal System. It's all in boxes. It's really fragile. To get the research done would, it cost a lot of money and take a lot of hours.
And well, let's talk about when Americans first came upon this area. Who were they? Were they cowboys? I mean, it looks like there was a little stable or a corral out there on the land too. What can we say about the first Americans here?
Well, George Stone Wilson. That's really strange because he got the place in 1911, and Woodrow went into the White House in 1912 and made Arizona a state. Whether they were kin or not, I don't really know, but they had the whole backside of the mountain. I showed you the one map when it was the first guest ranch in the state, and it shows the whole backside of Mount Lemmon with all the trails that they let people go riding on and different stuff.
Yeah, but the first Americans, through there, did they have mining intentions, or what lured them to that little pocket of the Santa Catalinas?
Well, actually, it was on the main route from Texas to San Diego, and they had to stay there because of the water. The water was the big thing. For farming, there's only 3 watersheds on Mount Lemmon: San Sabino Canyon, Seneca Creek, and the Cañada del Oro. And I don't believe that the other 2 have any irrigation projects like we have there. I think Cody had something to do with them too, because he was big into the irrigation thing. That's what I was hoping, is like maybe some of the viewers, there's a lot of people that knows a lot of pieces of this puzzle. If they can contact us, then that'll help preserve the history, and it'll give us a clearer picture that we can leave behind for the future generations. But there's still, like I said, it's still a mystery. And George Stone Wilson, though, that was, big cattle people, and then it became the first guest ranch. Rita Hayworth stayed there, Tom Mix. It was, it was big time back in the old days.
Yeah, and we in the story we saw a Buffalo Bill.